and a really big believer that telling our story is what heals us. That's what healed me, released so much of my, experience in the vibration of trauma that I had been holding from a really young age. And just the verbal, like articulating our truth and our story was like always kind of the premise for my brand and what I'd been trying to share with an audience. And tarot is that. It's a very, very beautifully designed system of 78 cards that's following, the Fool, which is the main character of the tarot, and his story, or his, hers, they story. And it just, to me, felt very tangible. And it was easy for me to like feel the cards energetically and feel like the visual, the imagery started to become like a trigger point for my like other clairs. So like the fact that I could start to feel with like clairsentience into my body because I was holding these cards and flipping them over, and also like clairaudience could come through as a trigger for like when I see particular images. It just started to kind of piece together and make a lot of sense to me. So I, especially, when we started this conversation with all my earth energy, I really like the like almost practical, like tangible object for my channeling. And it's the same reason why now in more of my psychic work, I like to write. I need to feel, it needs to feel tactful for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really accessible for people. And I know for me, it was like just cards were one of the best ways for me when I was first opening up my intuition and trusting that and getting confirmation with what I was hearing. I'm curious about like, you know, which direction do I want to go here? So some people I will read. I'm not an expert in tarot at all, but I definitely like to use it and I will use it in different ways. And sometimes I go off of like so more of the like traditional descriptions that I've learned. And other times I just pull the cards and like I'm just intuitive with it and it like the meanings that I'm deriving have nothing to do with it's like sometimes opposite what if I looked up, what it would say, what that card means. What is like, how do you approach tarot? Like, is it more of an intuitive approach? Is it more of like traditional, what the cards mean? How do you approach it?
Great question, and like such a good one. It's definitely more intuitive and free flow at this point, but I do believe in having a basis of like the knowledge of the basics, because it just kind of supports your practice and gives you also, if you're not feeling as like channeled or tapped in, like it's what I like about it is if you're not receiving a ton from a particular card, you still have like a grounded space to begin, and then like the conversation starts to flow from there. So I'd say, a lot of readers that I work with will say like, oh, I kind of just want to go in like free flow. And if you already are very like intuitive and already, use channeling practices or have kind of done this stuff, I think that's totally fine. If you're picking up tarot for the first time and it's your first ever tool, I recommend giving some like nod to the history and tradition, because that's going to give you confidence, So I think it just depends on when the tool finds you in your
Hmm.
experience. Like if you had told me, hey, Kate, I've never used tarot before, I'd be like, you could pick up a deck of cards and do your thing, because you're already kind of further along with like your communication with your spirit guides and stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, because that's what I was gonna ask you. Like, do you see the psychic gifts as like ideally, if somebody was like, should I start developing my psychic gifts first or should I start exploring tarot first?
Mm,
Um, and my end goal is I would like to be well versed and proficient in all of it, right?
yeah.
Where would you say start?
I think I prefer tarot to
Hmm.
start, but that was
I
also
would say the same thing. I think it builds confidence.
it builds confidence, and I think that it gives you also this chance to start to play with shadow and light, because the thing that's different about tarot is that it doesn't just have like oracle or angel messages. And I love, people ask me all the time like, are you anti oracle deck? I'm like, no, not at all. It's just not my tool. I use them in my personal practice, but it's not my like main thing. But what I think is really nice is this, for the reasons that we talked about earlier, like as you get into the psychic skills and opening those areas, you don't know what's going to come through necessarily every time. And the tarot is a really nice way to begin getting comfortable with difficult energies, because we have things like the devil, we have the 10 of swords, we have very dark cards in tarot, which is a lot of the reason why people fear them. But if you are hoping end goal to really go full force into this space, it's a nice way to kind of introduce the uncomfortable spaces too.